Few days ago, Procreate Dreams finally made its big update with Procreate Dreams 2. 2 years ago, I started my channel with videos covering Procreate Dreams the day it came out because I believed it to be the next step in making animation more accessible. At the time, animation on iPad was still developing and it felt like we needed a breakthrough app. Unfortunately, when it came out, it was very half-baked. It was missing common animation and art features like proper frame management, a lasso tool, recovery files, align tool, resolution, good onion skinning, stabilization layers. Basically, it was a mess and it was probably more efficient to animate on paper. Anyway, putting all that behind, we finally should be getting Procreate Dreams 2 this year, and this week they've started inviting people into the beta for Procreate Dreams 2, which I'll go over today. I'll also explain how you can sign up further into the video. But without further ado, let's speak about what's new and see if Procreate Dreams is closer to the dream we imagined years ago. Starting off, Procreate Dreams 2 is a fully revamped app that supports all of your old dream files. It also is a free update to Procreate Dreams if you have already purchased it, so no need to worry about pricing. It promises to bring missing features like the lasso tool, keyboard shortcuts, better frame management, a revamped flipbook, export options, and more. It also aims to fix many bugs like its notoriously bad color drop, which would leave gaps between your fill color. What we're going to do today is take a look at how they implemented these changes, what's new, and my thoughts on them. Starting off with our drawing flipbook mode, which is the biggest change. This is where we'll be drawing our animations. It's very improved, but it's still a bit tricky, which I'll go over later. So flipbooks now work like groups, where you have a group of animation layers that you can edit all in one flipbook. So basically on the main timeline, we just see one flipbook, and when we click on edit flipbook, it expands into your editable drawings, which is your group of animation layers. When we get into the flipbook view, we can automatically see the user interface is totally different. We can see up to 3 layers at a time and edit their frames right inside of the flipbook as well as hide them. Inside of these animation layers, we also have drawing layers for each frame. So essentially, if you wanted to, which you won't, you can create a whole painting on each individual frame. Now, how is this possible? Well, now we have destructive filters and non-destructive blend modes that we can apply to each layer, and we also have our lasso tool. To test out these new features, I imported an old animation and tried to fix the proportions, which you can see on the right. Now, to be clear, I did not redraw any of these frames. I transformed the lines with distortion and mesh after lassoing them, and then I added a few lines to make the proportions look better. While it's not perfect, this immediately shows a night and day difference between the margin for error in this version of Procreate Dreams, because you can actually fix your work. I can't believe they took 2 years to add this. But we won't get caught up on that. What else can we do? Well, now we can also play our animations directly from our flipbook and edit multiple frames at once. We can create new animation layers, insert photos, edit our onion skin for forward and backward frames separately, and then we can also do some tweaks to pressure and stabilization straight from this menu. Additionally, if it applies to you, we can store brushes in iCloud and use a left-handed toolbar. We also have a brush cursor with hover, but that seems to be broken right now. Now, that was a lot of speaking. There were a lot of good things they added, but there are also a lot of downfalls. First of all, this new system is weird. It's not bad, but it's definitely weird. Remember how I said flipbooks work as groups? Well, you can edit the timing of frames inside of your flipbook mode, but you can't do it on the main track timeline. To be able to do that, you would have to convert your flipbook to a track and edit the frames on the main timeline, but then it's no longer a flipbook and you can't animate in it. Now, to be fair, you can already create a whole animation in one flipbook, but it would have major caveats. You wouldn't be able to use your non-destructive effects or your perform modes on individual animation layers. You can also only copy and paste up to 1 frame from flipbook to flipbook, which is odd. But ultimately, my biggest issue with the flipbook mode right now is that when you're selecting multiple frames to edit, you can't select more than the frames you currently see on the timeline. For example, the flipbook timeline always shows 15 frames from 3 layers at one time, but you can't see any more than that. You can't zoom in or out on the flipbook timeline, and you can't scrub for more when you're selecting multiple frames. So you can't just edit everything like you would like to all at once. And this gave me trouble when I was trying to edit 40 frames that were all on a duration of 3 frames, I basically had to convert the flipbook to a track, and then I had to multi-select the 40 frames on the track timeline and make them all a duration of 1 frame. Then I had to convert it back to draw. It wasn't hard to do this, and it also wasn't time consuming, but it was very confusing to learn, and it took more steps than you would expect. Overall, I'm not really annoyed by this, but it could prove problematic with longer flipbooks when they need to convert, and it might take the app a while to process this. It's also just not really user-friendly in my opinion. Nonetheless, you have the ability to fix issues in this one app now, rather than moving things around like you had to do in version 1, so I'm happy. Speaking of not user-friendly, let's move on to the new drawing mode. This is a mode where you just draw on a content frame that's on the main timeline, but in the Flipbook's drawing workspace. And I just don't understand this one at all. It hides the timeline completely from you, and you can just draw, but you can't move through either the Flipbook timeline or the main timeline. Let me know if I'm wrong, but it seems pretty useless right now, so I don't have much more to say about it. Around the rest of the app, most things are pretty much the same, but a little bit better. So let's cover the compose mode. This is where you'll be editing your content or your frames, but they aren't the same as the frames in the compose timeline. As I said before, your whole flipbook is a group, which is basically just playing a video on a track. And I get the sense that this is what the compose mode is for: video editing and compositing effects. On the compose timeline, you can convert flipbooks to tracks, edit videos, sound effects, and edit things like scale, rotation, and duration of videos or groups. There's not much to talk about in this mode since it's pretty much the same, but they added a nice new gesture where you can zoom in and out of the timeline horizontally by dragging left or right near the timeline markers. You can also do all your importing by clicking the plus button, and you can drag a slider to determine where your video should end playback, but for some reason there's no slider for where it should start. Shouldn't be too big of an issue. Most of the things I just mentioned about the timeline also apply in perform and keyframe mode. Performance mode is unfortunately basically the same as it was in Dreams 1 right now. It lights up a recording symbol on the top of the screen and then you move things, but as always you can be very inaccurate with your hand, so hopefully they can make it more precise by adding performance guides or something that your hand can follow. I don't think performance mode needs a spot on the interface as a mode since it can just work in keyframing mode, which we'll go over right now. So keyframe mode is mostly similar to how it was in Dreams 1. This is where you add effects to the content on tracks and edit keyframe timing and easing. Unfortunately, none of those have been updated really, so I think the best thing they could do for this mode is to add custom easing curves for precision, basically so you could time everything out better. And I think more importantly than anything, they should make it easier to select and see your keyframes. I always have to zoom in like 3 times before I can edit one single keyframe in keyframe mode, which is pretty annoying. Finally, we have new settings that work across all timeline modes. We can quickly change our FPS duration and document resolution, but best of all, now we have document recovery points to reverse accidental mistakes or bugs. Aside from that, we also have similar stage and playback settings, but the exporting got a big improvement. Here you can easily export your animations, or you can use advanced export. I tested out transparent exports and imports for MOV videos, GIFs, and PNGs, and they all worked well. GIF exporting will require some tinkering in advanced settings, but PNG image sequences are better than ever because now they can automatically make a folder when you export, and they import in the correct order, unlike they did in version 1, where you could have your 27th frame in the 3rd frame's place. Now you still will have to convert those PNGs into a track and decrease or increase their duration for whatever timing you want, which is kind of inconvenient, but nonetheless, it imports in the right order, which is the most important thing. On the topic of importing, Dreams 1 files will require you to group your hand-drawn content and convert them into flipbooks to continue hand-drawn animation. Other than that, imports have been pretty flawless for me. You can also directly import Procreate art, animations, and brushes. You just need to put them directly into files. They won't create their own files. And finally, transparent imports work well for multiple file types, which is amazing. So for my final thoughts, I see that Dreams 2 has some issues, but it seems pretty promising overall. I've only had about 3 hours to test it so far, but it made major improvements in the drawing mode, which was really the area that needed it most. Also, I'm happy to say that the performance seems pretty good. On the M3 iPad Air, I was able to create up to 5 video tracks, and I haven't been able to reach a maximum for regular content tracks or flipbook animation layers, which means you can just make as many as you want as far as I see so far. They've also fixed many major bugs. I do think this update automatically puts it up there amongst the best animation apps on the iPad, alongside things like Toon Squid and Calipeg in terms of usefulness. But of course, it is very behind on advanced features. So if you need advanced animation features, they're not here yet. What Dreams is for though, right now, it shines for its drawing experience, its visual style and the user interface, and its Procreate integration, as well as its precise but hard to learn app navigation. So real quick, I have about 5 major hopes for this program, and if you have any yourself, make sure to drop them in the comments so we can talk amongst ourselves. For me, number 1, I want quick line and a dedicated shape tool so we don't have to wait for a gesture or be able to mess up on the quick line gesture where you're trying to get a circle and it creates a square for you. That's kind of annoying. But at the same time, quick line is nice when you just want to quickly get a line in, and it's especially nice for animation, more so even than art in my opinion, when you need to get things right in perspective or just get very precise things while you're cleaning up. So number 2, I want the ability to zoom in and out of the flipbook timeline, because it's just a mess right now because you have to keep converting things back and forth even though it's fast. For number 3, I want to bring back the ability to move your flipbook timeline across your screen. And also I want it to be scalable so we can have more screen space when we're trying to draw. 4, make keyframes easier to select. Simple as that. They're way too small. And 5, I would like less modes and more meaningful ones. Now the modes are totally fine, but I don't really think they require different sections of the app because they all would basically work fine in compose mode. And 6, let us see the timeline in that silly drawing mode that I don't understand. So I'm going to wrap up this video, but if you want to sign up, I will leave the link in the description for the beta so you all can hopefully get in. I appreciate you watching to this point. If you found the video helpful or insightful, it really helps if you hit subscribe, comment, or like. I'm hoping to go live sometime soon and do like a beta demonstration, so watch out for that. That's all for today. See you all with more content later.